that is a good point, because that's the main difference. As a consultant, you cannot get too attached to your findings, right? You gotta
Yeah.
you gotta let it go. Like, oh, I was in this engagement and we found something. There was the IT guy sit down in front of the board. I'm the board of directors of this company, and say, I am sure this is not vulnerability. And I was like, that's okay. We might be wrong. Let's do a proof of concept. And obviously it was a vulnerability. So I think that as an IT admin, it's best not to use those sort of terms. But that's what I mean. As a consultant, you have to have a very thick skin and just let it go. If they don't want to accept it, that's fine. Like it's the risk, and all you can do is advise them and give them the best advice you can. But at the end of the day, it's their responsibility.
Welcome to the Elephant in AppSec, the podcast to explore, challenge, and boldly face the AppSec elephants in the room. I'm Alexandra, your host, joined by my amazing co-host Tristan, a former security engineer and co-founder of Escape. Today, we're excited to have an amazing guest, Ric Campo, join us. Ric started his cybersecurity journey in the Royal Australian Air Force. With a decade of dedicated experience as an application security engineer and penetration tester, he currently serves as a principal security consultant at Galah Cyber. Ric also strongly believes in the power of the community in AppSec. He focuses on writing blogs that will help the community in the long term. He's also been the OWASP Sydney chapter leader for several years. During the podcast, he'll share a funny story about how he became involved with the chapter. Ric has organized multiple meetups and has also presented at the OWASP 20th anniversary event. Throughout his career in application security, Ric has worn multiple hats, serving as both a cybersecurity consultant and an in-house application security engineer. This unique perspective prompted us to challenge him on their differences, unique challenges, and reasons behind his preference for the consultant role. Dive right in! So I'm very excited to have you here with us. I think you've been in security for 10 years already, so a huge application security background, and you've been involved in OWASP as well. And we actually presented, I think it was 3 years ago, an OWASP 20 years conference. And you presented, like, your topic was an attacker's view on 3 recent breaches in attacks region, like in 2021. So I think when I came across that video, I was actually very curious, why you decided to present this topic.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having it. I'm glad to have the opportunity to talk to you guys. Yes, that was an interesting decision. So the foundation asked me to present, as I was the chapter leader, and I was struggling to find out what sort of topic I was going to talk about, because it was a general type of forum. And I was thinking, if I got really technical, people will fall asleep unless they are interested in the technical part. If I go too high level, then the technical people will fall asleep. So what can be like the middle ground? And I thought the 3 bridges with a offensive perspective would be the best approach to keep everyone sort of awake throughout my presentation. So I hope that was okay, and you enjoy it a little bit. Didn't fall asleep.
Yes, for sure. And I mean, you have to raise some money for the foundation as well. So I think not only me enjoyed it when I rewatched it, 3 years later, but people who actually watched it, directly as well, or maybe some days after that. I think in 2021 I was not in the security yet, so I didn't come across that back then. But you drove I think you also come here from a bit of offensive security background too. And you started, I think, in a security with Royal Australian Air Force, right? And you moved from a project manager, design engineer role to actually cybersecurity consultant there. Can you tell our listeners a little bit the story behind this transition?
Well,
what made you, switch?
So I cannot talk much about what happened in defense. That was a while back.
Okay.
But yeah, towards the end of my tenure in defense. So yes, I was an engineer, project manager type of thing, and I did a master's in electrical engineering. So I'm an electronics engineer by degree. That's more than 20 years ago. So you can see I'm a bit past my prime. So I did that master's in electronic engineering. And there was one subject about cybersecurity, and when I did that subject, I was hooked in. So I was trying to find an area to move into out of defense that was like a good, good sort of interesting career path. And after doing that course, I don't think I had any choice. I just fall into it, and I made myself posted into the unit that deals with cybersecurity in the Air Force. And I learned about it all with all my colleagues, and I thought that the most suitable area for me was penetration testing. I started doing the OSCP, and I think that I had a friend there, or still have a friend. He's still in defense that did a little bit of malware analysis, and he was like incident responder, and he's like fantastic at this area. He developed exercises, and I realized I did not like incident response or malware analysis or reverse engineering. And the more I investigated the GRC, I didn't like. As a matter of fact, I have a funny story when I started in industry. So I decided I did my LCP, got the first job, I got certified. The company took me while I was doing the LCP. They were called Foresight, I believe, and I was doing a mixed role. So I was like GRC, offensive, like it's a small consultancy. So I was doing a whole range of things. So we were in our clients. I was learning to do audits, right? Well, you do audits in defense, but I was like the civilian type of thing. So I was standing behind someone doing the audit, and I actually fall asleep. So I think that at that particular stage, I realized yes, it was not for me. So yeah, the client wasn't impressed with that. But I think that
Sure.
yeah, yes, it was not for me. So that's how I finished in a. No, I didn't get fired for that, but my boss was really good, and he understood that he just didn't put me in any DRC engagements anymore, obviously. so, so I was only doing pen testing. I joined pure hacking after that. Yeah, it was all offensive until I changed to application security a few years ago. So yeah.
And when you did this transition, after you decided to get involved in the community, right? Because you became like the chapter lead of OWASP Sydney. So you decided to be involved in the community. Why did you decide to do that? Like you didn't stop at transitioning to application security. You wanted also to, I don't know, like collaborate with the other folks in the field.
Yeah, I that's a funny story. I did not want to lead the chapter. I wanted to join and help whoever was leading the chapter.
Okay.
So I embarked in this 2 months journey of find out who was leading the chapter, and I brought to OWASP. I brought a series of people, talk around, and for whatever reason I couldn't find him. So after 2 months of searching, I said to the OWASP Global, well, if there is no one, just give it to me, and they did. After they gave me the
What
chapter,
happened? I mean, like, but nobody knew who it was, or the person didn't it didn't exist. Like there was nobody leading the chapter. Like, do you know?
No, there was one person, but I think that he was at this stage in his life. He was starting a business. He was doing a whole bunch
Okay.
of things, and I think this was just missed
Okay.
in the clutter, because after I took over the
Okay.
chapter, he actually called me and said, "Oh, let's do a handover takeover." And we did like we had like a 2 hours meeting, and he showed me everything there was to know about OWASP. And yeah, he
Yeah.
was very active before that. And
Okay.
yeah, just life challenges, right?
Okay.
Sometimes.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
And how did this involvement, in the community, actually did it help you as well, like learn from others in your career when you were still when you were doing like job on the side, or it's just like you actually got involved in the community, helped to organize, but it didn't as much contribute to your career per se?
That actually is a really good question. I think that it did contribute a lot to my career. I think that being active in the community was very helpful to me, helped me grow up as a
Mm.
person as well, realize the sort of person I want to be and how I want to deal with my colleagues. And, because I think it's very hard sometimes to know who you are and how you want to be in a public setting and with people. And I think that professionally, I learned a lot from the presentations that were given, right? I get to meet really interesting people that contacted me because they wanted to present, or I contacted them and asked them, etc. And I think that opened myself wider to the community. Up to that point, while I was a pen tester, I was very close in. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I learned by myself, and that's the fact. Except for my colleagues
Yeah.
in defense that I asked advice from. After I got in industry, I sort of closed myself in, and I didn't ask advice of anyone. I didn't read that. I used to read blogs, but I didn't used to take them too hard like some people do, or like I never believe anything that anyone will say. And I think joining
Yeah.
OWASP, leading the chapter, opened me to the opinion of a lot of people, and helped me to meet a lot of wonderful people actually in our community. And it really helped me grow as a professional and as a person. I even put a nice team together from friends, and we did, I think, a good job throughout the 3 years that we were on, and we had very good successes in the chapter, and we got a really good presentation. I met lots of amazing people and learned a lot during that period. So yeah, I think that's what the very lengthy answer to your question is. Yes, I think it did help me a lot to grow as a person, as a
I mean, that's
professional.
super. Yeah, that's very interesting. What would you define as a success in a chapter?
Well, I think for me personally is participation levels. I think that's how I measure the success. When we started, we were in the middle of COVID as well. So COVID
Okay.
started, we had to do them online. So we were worried that, we were friends. So we agreed that even if it was just the three of us getting together to have a coffee, so it was worth it. So we said, well, let's do it. If the worst happens and no one shows up, then at least the three of us just sit there for an hour and we just talk nonsense, have a coffee, and then go home. I have fun anyway. So it was a win-win situation from our perspective. So when people show up and join the conversation and things, we were quite surprised. So that was my success rate, was how many people. And I think that when we were online, we had really good presentations. So we had really good view numbers and things, and they grow over time. The more constant you are, the better it is. I think that
Yeah.
if you're constant in these sort of scenarios, people start relying on you, and every month they know you have something, and they try to make the time their schedule. The problem why a chapter might not succeed is because they are not constant. They do a presentation 1 month, and then 6 months later another one, then 2 months later another one, and that lack of consistency make people think, oh well, when do I see? But if you every month on the same day you have a presentation or close to it, everyone like, okay, I'm gonna put it in my calendar, and we started having regulars. It was really cool because you saw them every month, and you were like, hey, how are you? And it was like seeing, like an old colleague just coming back. Like it was such a happy moment to see people coming back to the chapter and see the presentation. Like, so that was my measure of success. Even though I don't know if anyone agrees with that. But yeah, you know,
I mean,
yeah.
that's a great achievement and a way, I think, for the community for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's and what was the like? So what you describe is that you started actually like doing activities, creating regular catch-ups and meetings for OWASP, and people started showing up and doing great presentation, because in application security people are passionate generally. So when they speak about what they do, they speak with passion. But was there a hard part in leading an OWASP chapter? Was there things that were difficult, or like time
Oh
taking?
yes, dealing with OWASP Global, they are very difficult to deal with.
Okay.
As
Okay.
anyone who has been in the organization will tell you, I think that Andrew, he's the CEO, and his team are really good, committed, and they really want to help. They really do. I think they're very committed to the mission, but they have God knows how many people, how many projects, how many problems. So when you're from a small chapter annoying them, it's like, yeah, so it's difficult, and you want the attention, so you get what you want, and half the time I didn't get what I wanted, so I have the sources from the community. So
Okay.
when I was doing it, I complained a lot about that was the biggest challenge for me, where all
Okay.
was global.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense too. Uh, and speaking back about your career, so you did a lot of security consulting jobs. So what do you like on consulting as opposed to being like in-house engineer or a security engineer? What is what's specific to consulting that you like?
I think it's the variety of work. So when you're in consulting, you see a massive range of things, questions, and people. And I think that that's what makes it really interesting. Unless I don't want to use the term boring, because that's not accurate. When I have been in internal teams, you get really interesting challenges too. But in this one, it's just like you get one challenge and you're doing a desktop app, and then the next day you're doing a web app, and the next day you get some ancient Delphi bank program that has never been assessed in the life of it. And Rex, you remember when you learned to program in Pascal, before
Yes.
perhaps you were born. So, I think so, I, I had to look at my Pascal book. I go like, oh my God, that's right. Yeah, like this is how you do stuff. So it's a big range of things, and you can jump from one to
Mm.
IoT, like suddenly you get a modem or you know a phone or something, and you just go like, okay. So it's the variety that makes it really interesting, and I really like when I get things that I don't know how to do. So I know, I know.
So
All
you
the
start
time you
from
say,
scratch
yeah,
by solving.
yeah, like it's a big challenge, because you got a window, you have to learn the system, you have to learn the languages, you have to learn the stack, and you have to learn how to pen test it, or how to test it or assess it in a really short time frame, and that's really exciting. I think it's like it makes it even the more when you start finding really good things, you're like, there you go. That's why I am what I am, I guess. So it's like I like those the most, even though everyone go with it. I think experience allows you to be more dynamic, and to learn things really quickly, and to be able to solve complex problems in a very fast fashion. And that's where experience come in. But less experienced people will struggle with that sort of situation, if that makes sense. So yeah, yeah, I don't get that excited with an SQLite, to be honest, anymore. But if I find a thing that I don't know, an IoT device that I don't know, that I had to learn, and I find an SQLite on that's exciting to me. But a web SQLite, I'm like, yeah, well, add it to the list of the
And
million I found.
so actually, this is a very interesting question. So when you are a consultant, this is what you said. You see a lot of different situations, a lot of different
Mm.
companies. Like, do actually companies all have the same problems? Like when you go from one company to another, you're like, oh, here we go again. Like this is gonna be the same, because we know that all companies, like, they fall for the same reasons. Like they are breached for the same reasons. Is it the case, or do you see like a huge difference between organizations in terms of maturity for application security and web security?
Well, this is funny. I think I personally think that they are different, but I have a funny way to look at life, right? So you might find patterns that are similar, right? Like you might find a lot of cross-site scripting sometimes, especially with companies that don't have security as a core issue. Where that some ones that companies that take security more serious and have security, you'll find less SQLI, SQLI, cross-site scripting. I mean, and then you find. So it depends, right? Like I have found things that sometimes I find a client or a developer that is really old, right? Like, white hair sort of things towards the end of their career, but they're really security conscious. Like they're the most
Okay.
security conscious person in the planet. You wouldn't believe it. Like
Yeah.
you see him and then he talks like, oh my God. But then you meet somebody just came out of uni and they couldn't care less about security. And just like, okay, well, so it's like, I think that there is no one fits all type of thing. And I think that it depends on the people that you're dealing with, at the developers and the mentality of the company and the culture as well. Some companies have a very good security culture, and it's not about having mistakes on the code or vulnerabilities. It's about how they resolve it. You know what I mean? And I think that when you find that sort of companies with an open, you made a mistake, there is an error, let's fix it, don't worry about pointing fingers or whatever, let's talk how to be better, let's learn, let's do hackathons, those sort of things. That's the best, most secure software that you find, and the best people to work with. When the ones that are all trying to tick the box and point the finger, that's usually at the most difficult. They just want you to run a scan, delete all the findings, and just give them a clean report so they can tick the box, which I can really
And be compliant.
That's not
Yeah.
very secure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like in general, when we speak with security engineers, like in-house security engineers, they tell us that one of their major challenge is not even the technical part, but more the relationship with the developers and the product teams and the development teams. Do you think, like, when you're an external consultant, this must be frustrating, right? Because since you cannot stay in the company for long, you cannot deeply change the culture. So how do you deal with that? Like the fact that you're not gonna be there for a long time and that the company is going to continue like his activities after. How do you ensure that it creates a change like in the long run and not just at the moment where you intervene?
Well, I suppose that is a good point, because that's, I think, is the main difference. As a consultant, you cannot get too attached to your findings, right? You gotta
Yeah.
you gotta let it go. Like, maybe I was in this engagement and we found something. There was the IT guy sit down in front of the board. I'm the board of directors of this company, and say, I am sure this is not vulnerability. And I was like, that's okay. We might be wrong. Let's do a proof of concept. And obviously, it was a vulnerability. So I think that as an IT admin, I think it's best not to use those sort of terms. But that's what I mean. As a consultant, you have to have a very thick skin and just let it go. If they don't want to accept it, that's fine. Like it's their risk, and all you can do is advise them and give them the best advice you can. But at the end of the day, it's their responsibility. So I suppose as a consultant, you have to have a little bit of a no offhand approach. You care about your clients, but you can't care too much that you damage the relationship and they don't come back to you. So you gotta walk that thin line, right? But when you are in an internal team, then you can sit there and fight with them and say, but this, and that's where bad relationships go, right? And the fighting starts, and the developers hate the security team, and the security team hate the developers, and well, unfortunately, that's what happens. And I think that that's the big difference between the two, is that internal teams will care more because they're in charge of fixing those things that you find as a consultant. So they are the ones who fight the battle, while you are the one who just go like, okay.
Yeah.
And like, apart from the relationship part, what other potential like negative sides of consulting that you might have seen on your way?
Well, I tend to have a very sometimes, especially with young fellas, they get a bit too passionate, and I suppose I was like that. Well, I started a bit late, so they get a bit too passionate and start fighting with the clients, and I think that, no.
Can you ever be too passionate?
Well, you certainly can. I mean, and I know that in a business context, it is a difficult approach, because as a consultant, you have to know the line, right, with your clients, and you're gonna have all sort of clients, and it's important to know where that line is, and just take the loss. Like you're not gonna get anywhere with it, and you want to keep the relationship. I was talking with a young fella the other day, and he found something really bad, and he was really incensed that it has to be fixed and whatever. And I say to him, you gotta decide where the line is, because you're gonna give yourself a heart attack. I mean, there is a process. There is people in charge of the risk. There is people in charge of fixing this thing. And if you sit there giving yourself a heart attack about this, you're gonna die young, and then you're gonna leave actually, if you know what I mean. He's just gonna burn himself out, and he just, so. And I think he didn't like my response. He said, "Well, with that attitude, I'm like, well." you gotta know the balance to be able to survive as a consultant, and it's very important, because you want to serve your client, and the best way to serve your client is to have a good relationship. And to have a good relationship is not to have arguments. That is essential. And that sometimes means compromising in certain things so that you can fix the most important things. And I think that's where the balance is. It's just that 50-50, like win-win, more than actually you have to fix everything at once sort of approach. Yeah.
Have you ever been like in a company where when the data breach happened, or you were lucky?
No, I haven't so far. To my knowledge, there haven't been one. I don't know if they tell us. I've been in pretty dodgy places sometimes in the internal teams, and they hide things, and then you find them, and you go. But something I've been successful on both sides is not to have good relationship with the development teams. I don't think I have been too bad at that so far. I have a very pragmatic approach about it. Don't get me wrong. Between the team in the security, I get very excited about it. And we get really complex discussions, even heavy arguments. But when we come to the facing of the developers, I always try to avoid mediatory approach, so that we can fix things. But it's just part. So I haven't been in a company that have been breached. I mean, so they say it's a good thing because you get lots of money. So I haven't experienced that yet. I hope I don't.
Yeah, you get. You mean like founding, like a lot of founding, right?
Yeah, lots of budget. Big companies, when a breach happens, that's when they start throwing the blank checks to security. Fix it.
Yeah.
That's a great one, dude. It's true from our perspective, from what we observe, from the people that are guests in the podcast, and the people we talk with. Security engineer, always when there is a breach, there is like a huge amount or budget that is unlocked for the security team, so it doesn't happen again. Companies just do it like that, like, I don't know if it's the best approach, but still. Okay, great. And so currently, like, what are the current trends that you see in application security consulting, and especially how do you see it evolving? Like the role of an application security consultant, how do you see it evolving? What does the future of it looks like?
Well, that is a really complex question, and I think that everyone you talk to might have a slightly different idea. I am of the idea that application security engineering will eventually disappear. It will become part of the development process. So the way application security exists at the moment is non-sustainable. The only solution to fix this development is to integrate application security into the development process, which means developers have to fix these things, detect, fix, and then the application security person will become more like a support individual that will help the development teams fix their problem. So it will be like a developer with a lot of experience and know how to fix a specific code bases. You know what I mean? More than actually a security expert, or like myself, who go and talk about vulnerabilities and risk. It will be like an integrated process. And I think that if you look at how industry is changing in nowadays, that's the way that it's trending. So with the introduction of AI, like you have the Copilot in GitHub and all the changes in all different tools, not to, I'm just, it's the most popular one, I guess. But there is no good or bad. And there are a lot of good tools out there that are starting to implement this so that developers detect and fix. So the big problem nowadays is that tools have a lot of false positives. But I think as we move forward in time and the system matures, this will reduce. And then the developers will be able to take this responsibility. And in many cases, when you think about it, when you do a code review, you find deserialization vulnerabilities. Let's talk about one, right? You pointed out there is a deserialization vulnerability. You might detect the path to exploit this and you show an exploit, which is the best way to do it, or you might not, but it's there, right? Now, the developer will know the path to that vulnerability. The developer will know if it is exploitable or not. If you can reach it, you can exploit it, right? That's the key of it. So they will know all these things. They're the best people to detect and fix these vulnerabilities. And I think that application security eventually will transition to be a software engineering part of the job type of thing, a software engineering specialization more than actually a security one. That's my view on it. And the application security expert will be an old developer who has been doing this for years, who decided to specialize in this particular field of software engineering. That means I'll be without a job in a, well, I don't know, maybe we'll see. But I think that's how it should, how it should transition.
Okay. So if you think, for example, someone now, right now who is just out of the university, let's say, or maybe like 2 or 3 years in their career, and they see like their passion, they actually want, for example, this diverse experience as you have as a consultant. So they might be, interested in that. You would not actually recommend them to go into it, but more like learn development skills in this case. So for their future.
I think that they can still go into cybersecurity. It's a lot of jobs that will continue. Like GRC is an ever-growing field, and it will continue to be an ever-growing field. I mean, obviously, not all of us are suitable for it, like myself.
Well, some fall asleep.
Yeah, that's right. So it's not the most the most suitable thing, but incident response will be another field that will always exist. After a breach, they will always have to have the incident response there and the lawyers that come and analyze this thing and present it to the court. And you will always have a SOC to respond and analyze all these things. You will have engineering, pen testing as well. There will be that. And yeah, I just think the application security field will change. And yeah, you can become maybe do computer science and then specialize in security and focus on that area. Because I think what companies are going to have is people that can do the assessments, right? So get the tools and do manual assessment, plus fix the vulnerabilities, right? So it will become part of the team. The team develop the code. This guy does the code review, fix the code, send it to the next level to do a code review, if you know what I mean. So it becomes another developer in the team specialized in the security instead of being an application security team doing this specific job. Because that will ensure the agility of the software development and the output that is continuing to be produced. Because if the company cannot make money, then there is no point in having the company. You know what I mean? It's like it's the essence of it. You need to produce software quickly, otherwise you are out of business. And I'm sure you guys know this better than anyone. You are in that business, but you know what I mean. And I think that the problem with security nowadays that we're seeing is that software is becoming extremely complicated. When you go and buy a burger, you have to have two-factor authentication. You have to have this and that, and a meal confirmation. I mean, for crying out loud, just go to the store and buy the burger and just eat it, instead of going to the online store. And now complexity is bypassing usability, and that means online business will decrease, right? So there have to be a drop down. And our responsibility as securities professionals to find easier ways to secure the software without destroying usability. Because if customers cannot use the software, then they will not use the software. Nobody wants to spend 3 hours buying a burger. You know what I mean? So yeah, it should be a click, 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 get out without being hacked, right? And I think that's what I'm talking about. That's how things have to change. It has to become more integrated. And I think that yes, you can specialize in the field, but it will be not in the same format that it is now. But that's in accordance to me, right? I might be entirely wrong, and it might be the same in 20 years' time. So
we'll see, in the 10 years.
So,
We'll meet,
so
in 10 years and rediscuss this podcast and see how it changed. And I think that
that's right.
the last question, we always ask, on a podcast, do you have any recommendation for learning materials, books, or I don't know, videos or influencers to follow for people who want to learn more about, let's say, application security or maybe security consulting or offensive security?
Well, offensive security, I would say I like Hack the Box. Hack the Box is really good, and it's free. They have a free tier. They
It's
have
really
the
great.
academy, which is really good. Yes.
Yeah.
So I still do. There is the Burp Academy as well, which is free and it's really good for application security. Certification, say the OSWE would be the best for an application security person to do. And Tanya Janka, she has these application security courses, 3 of them. They actually are really, really good. I did the 3 of them. She goes, it's not very technical, but it actually covers the whole process of application security and the documentation requirements, bill of materials, third party, everything. I think of all courses I did in application security, her 3 courses are the best. And they are like $50 or something. They're super cheap. So anyone can do them. And I think any developer or aspiring application security engineer should do those courses, It would be good if she had like a certification and exam. And I did ask her that. And she had like a little completion thing, but not an actual certification exam, which would be, I think it would be worthwhile to have in her, because there are assignments at the end of each course, and they compress everything that you have learned. And I think that is very useful from an application security management, not management, the process standpoint, no actual assessment. The assessment you have to do Burp Academy, Hack the Box, and I will get into the technical side of things. Another thing that I think is very important is to learn the basics. So a lot of people jump into hacking things without understanding how Linux operates, firewalls, reverse proxies, all the things. And I think it's very essential knowledge to understand how networks operate, operating systems, how they operate, the permissions, all that sort of basics. Like you should be almost not as much, maybe not as much, but maybe 70% as much as a system administrator to be good, technically proficient at anything in cyber. So it requires commitment to learn all of that. Like, if you want to learn to do application security, you should know about coding. You have to know how to code, but you have to know about objects and inheritance. And if you don't understand these, you will not be able to find vulnerabilities in code. You have to understand how libraries work and DLLs, how they are called, and functions, and how it is in assembly language, and how it cycles resist. All these basics are very important to help you become proficient in a specific field in cyber. And even GRC, sorry, now I'm getting a bit long on this answer, getting some acknowledge of how system operates will help them be better to do assessments. I've seen many auditors that have no idea technical knowledge, and some of the things they recommend are just, it left a lot to be desired. This is like they have no clue what they are recommending. It's like they don't even understand what the objective of the requirement is, what it's trying to achieve in the actual technical perspective. So, having some technical knowledge as a GRC consultant is very, very important Sorry.
Great.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for such in-depth advice, and thank you a lot for finding the time to be on the podcast and share your experiences with us. And I would hope that it will really help our listeners to better, understand what's actually like the difference between, consulting and in-house engineering, and about OWASP community as well. So thank you, thank you so much, and
Thank you very much
thank
for
you,
your
Rick, for
time.